Good evening, YouTube. Hardball Crazy come back with video. Today I'm going to talk about a little bit about a lost part of baseball history. It's rarely ever talked about, discussed, maybe within these own cities they may have discussed some in their history, baseball history, or museums or whatnot, maybe in their team history. But in the national scope, part of old baseball that's never talked about, and I don't think a lot of people know that it ever really existed. I'm talking about a City Series exhibition games, more or less exhibition games. Um, of course, we all know, baseball fans, historians know, the first World Series in 1903, when the American League started as a major league in 1901, and in 1903, the champs of the 03 World Series decided to play a end of season championship World Series, and drew big crowds, became popular. And upon that, these city teams decided to do their own little end of season exhibition. So starting in 1903, there's like two teams back then. And of course, there was two teams in Philadelphia, two teams in Boston, two teams in St. Louis, two teams in Chicago, still two teams in Chicago, and there were three teams in New York. And so, end of the season, they had their own city series, exhibition series. So I'm going to talk about those briefly, and specifically one city that has the most, where the city series has the most significance, I would say, on it. And I'll touch about that, and I will show some cards at the end. But this is mostly a little learning lesson upon all of us. I did some research myself and learned upon things. Like I said, mostly the series started in 1903. I'm going to first talk about the Boston. The Red Sox and the Braves, of course, started. They had in 1905 and 1907, they had series. Cy Young was a big star of those two series. The Red Sox won those pretty handily. They won 12 of the 14 games played. They had usually best of seven series usually at the end of a series, and for whatever reason, after 1907, they didn't pick up the City Series until 1925. We started 1925, and they played through 1953, when the Boston Braves moved out of Boston to Milwaukee, and but the Red Sox won the majority of the games with a 62-38 record between the two Boston teams. That's all I really could find out in the history. I did recent research on it. St. Louis, they only did from 1903 to 1917. One thing about the Boston series, they started out in the fall in 1905-07. 1925, they started playing some in the fall, some in the spring, and they played more of like an exhibition series. Like 1920, most of the times I think they just play in the spring. They might play a little bit in the summer, but it's more of an exhibition spring, what we consider more like a spring training game, probably with a little less substitutions, but not as much play for win as other. As I will tell a little bit more a little later. So St. Louis only had a series from 1903 to 1917. The Browns actually won the majority of those series. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. In Philadelphia, they played the A's and the Phillies. Played from 1903 and 1954, and they played from spring, fall, and sometimes in the middle. It was all inconsistent. It was a pretty popular. All these games were well attended amongst the series, and so there was very like 15,000, 20,000 fans per game of these city series. A little tidbit: in 2011, Grover Cleveland Alexander made his Philly debut in the Phillies series before the 1911 season. Like I said, the Philadelphia series played throughout 1954, 1903 and 1954. And of course, that's when the Philadelphia A's moved outside of Kansas City. Like the first series after the Kansas City became the Kansas City A's. They spring training went up to Philadelphia, played the Phillies there in Philadelphia, but after that, Kansas City A's still play spring training games in Florida with the Phillies, so they played a lot of exhibition games each other, and they kind of continued their little city series during the exhibition season. But that all ended when the A's moved to Oakland, and then they became a Arizona spring training team. So Philadelphia had a nice history of the city series, but it was all over the place between seasons, and it wasn't always intense. But the city series that was mostly intense and had the most historic significance was Chicago. They started in 1903, and they played all the way through 1942, except for a couple seasons. A lot of times these city series teams, if one team was in the World Series, they didn't have a city series. So let's say the Cubs or the White Sox play the World Series, they didn't have a series at the end of the season, partially due because baseball contracts were season ended October 15th, so the games never passed October 15th. So comes like a 7-game series and ended like on Game 6 ended on October 15th. They didn't play any longer. October 15th was the cutoff date. But the in 1920, the Whites, they didn't play the City Series because the Black Sox had their players banned, so the White Sox had trouble supporting the team at the end of 1920 season when all the players, 8 players, got banned. So they didn't replenish their roster quick enough to have a new series, so they didn't play in 1920. Overall, but the White Sox and Chicago City Series, they were the most intense. The fans had the most pride between the two of them, the most bragging rights, most trash talking of the day between the two, and it was like the most intense rivalry of them. So the Chicago series seemed to be the most historical significance. It always played in the fall. So other cities, they were all over the place. Chicago was end of the season, we're playing the fall, and it's that. So it had the most tradition, the most structure, the most intensity, the most fans, and became the biggest of the city series. That's why I'm mostly talking about them. And I'm getting these stats by the Saber Bio thing, and they gave final results and stats of some of these things, all-time leaders. I'm guessing they stopped in 1942 because of World War II. Never read up around a reason why. The White Sox won majority of them. They won 26. They played 26 seasons out of 40 years, and the White Sox won 19 of the series. And even though the Cubs had some dynasties in there, but the White Sox didn't win a whole lot, but the White Sox won the most of the series. After 42, after they had exhibitions and fundraising games, but the City Series as it was done in 1942. Like I said, the White Sox won most of them, and I'm gonna give you some all-time leaders. Played in the most City Series, the 14 years. Red Faber and Ted Lyons both played in the most series ever at 14. Games played. Ray Schalk played the most games played ever with 55 games. Gabby Hartnett played in 51 games. And Johnny Evers played in 50 games. Evers also was the all-time leader in stolen bases with 13 amongst the City Series. And who hit the most home runs in all-time Chicago City Series is Earl Sheely, slugging first base for the White Sox in the 1920s. He had 6. As for the most wins ever in the City Series in Chicago, is Red Faber with 11, went 11-6, and Ted Lyons went 10-7. There's some little cards for you to see and little factoids, the all-time leaders in the City Series. Something baseball has we kind of forgotten about, never talked about, is end of season exhibition City Series. So I thought I'd bring that attention to it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching. Have a good night.